Magalhaes to Stokes, who's onside. 1-0.
Here's Sims. It's a good serve this from Southampton. They could finish the job here. It's Shane Long, and he has done it. Just a minute to play. Plus stoppage time. Here's Letizia. Who better to say farewell than one of the finest players ever to wear the red and white.
Hello and welcome to the Saints FC podcast. This week I'm joined by Tom. Tom, how are you? Happy New Year, Merry Christmas. How was your holiday season?
Yeah, it was good, John. We had a turkey. Obviously, we were anticipating more guests than we had. So when we opened Jamie Oliver's cookbook and saw that we had a turkey size that he described as feeding 12 with leftovers between two of us and my wife's grandma, a bit galling, but we finished the turkey.
Seriously? What, on Christmas Day?
Yeah, we were like, look, I knew it was a big turkey, but I was meant to have 7 of us, and then the 3, one of which eats like a sparrow. So, finished the turkey, but I'm really good, John. Thank you. And your family are well?
Yeah, we're all sort of unwell. Baby had a viral infection this week, which was a bit scary because there's quite a well-known virus going on around at the moment. But he's had a test and he's come back negative, so that's good. Excellent. Bad news is back in work tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I think it's better that way around. Still got the Christmas ham going, by the way.
Good.
5th of January, still going. Again, bought the morning before the Christmas plans were cancelled by the government, so was planning for a lot more people.
Is that safe to be eating a ham 11 days after the big day?
I think hams are pretty... They're long-lasting, yeah.
All right, I mean, you're still here, so we'll go with it.
Maybe that's where he got his virus from. Actually, we're not really feeding a 9-month-old... 10-day-old ham. Tom, I'm going to go to Ralph first. You okay with that?
I think he supersedes me on this day, so I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you see the team we had today, and you play against such a team, and then I don't know when I started to believe that we definitely can take points there, but. It is very emotional, and I must say I have never been that proud with any team I have coached before, I must say.
So, Tom, I mean, I know you didn't quite hear that because of the audio setup that we've got. You can't hear Ralph chatting away on here. But it was a clip recorded by the BBC just at the end of the game, and obviously Ralph is really emotional. And he says he thinks, considering the team that he had to put out, the team that he was playing against, that is the best he's had from one of his teams ever.
Yeah.
Which is quite a statement. And I think we can't ignore that. So, despite the fact that we haven't spoken for 5 Premier League games, I think, Tom, which is quite a long time. Obviously, the listeners have had a chance to hear James Beattie waxing lyrical about how his ultimate Saints 11. I think we're going to start with Liverpool, then work our way back through those other 4 games. But there's so much to talk about in this game, and it was just absolutely joyous, wasn't it?
It was brilliant. I think a lot of Saints were concerned. It's the rumours that McCarthy was going to be out, and Big Fraser, obviously, we know he's a great keeper, but everyone, worries about perhaps his distribution and his confidence. And then you heard Romeu was going to be out, and you heard Shea Adams was going to be out, and obviously Vestergaard's out. So that's the spine of the team. That's 4 of the 11 guaranteed starters going to be out. And I think going into the game, I was, like a lot of other Saints fans, I was a bit worried.
Yeah, I mean, I was as well. You have that sort of Saints lineup. Fraser Forster, even when he was Fraser Forster's best, he was never the sort of goalkeeper that was particularly great with his feet or his distribution. He was a wonderful shot stopper, a wall at times, but definitely not someone who passes with their feet. maybe with Vestergaard being out, that was less of a worry, but we know that Jack Stevens likes to play the ball. But that was probably my biggest worry, was not so much Forster's ability as a goalkeeper, but Forster's ability to play the sweeper role in the first part of the distribution that Alex McCarthy's been doing so effectively. And it's funny with McCarthy, because I don't ever really think of him as a mammoth or a giant, or I don't look at him and think he's our best player, and I don't think he's the best goalkeeper we've ever had. But seeing how I felt when I knew he was out, it surprised me how I was feeling, actually.
Yeah, well, I think also he represents very much the modern goalkeeper. And to your point about Fraser Forster, I think it's kind of an interesting mini case study about how football has changed in not very long. 3 or 4 years ago, when Forster was probably at his peak for Saints, you had, Manuel Neuer, and you had a few other, liberos, I think is what they're described as.
Yeah.
Ter Stegen is another one, but they were kind of the exception, weren't they, rather than the rule in goalkeepers. They were kind of the future prototypes. And what's fascinating is in 3 or 4 years now, they've actually very much become the norm, and that's what McCarthy managed to do, is he's been able to, certainly since lockdown, get the ball out of his feet quicker, pick a pass, and hopefully, touch wood, not make bad decisions. And I think, Forster has many strengths, but I think last night going into it, you're right. You were worried that us playing it around at the back, them with their very quick, nippy players and a high press, and Forster could be a bit of a toxic combination.
Yeah. And you couple that as well with the Liverpool lineup, which was ultra attacking, wasn't it? I mean, they weren't really planning on doing much defending by the looks of things, with Jordan Henderson and Fabinho as the two centre-backs. They didn't have a central defender on the pitch. They do have some in their squad. Some Liverpool fans have been complaining about injuries, but, as you touched on, Tom, we had a real spine of the team missing. Add on top of that, I think the last 4 times we'd played them in the Premier League, we'd lost 4 consecutive games.
Yeah.
Not beaten them in the Premier League for 6 games. I think the aggregate scoreline over that period was something like 17 goals to 2. Yeah, only one of those games that we really sort of looked good in. And then you also think that Saints hadn't scored for 3 games in the run-up to that, which was another sort of worrying stat. But I don't know, how are you feeling before the game, Tom? Because I think this is the interesting thing about this Southampton, and it's the same feeling that I had with Koeman, same feeling I had with Pochettino, same feeling I had with Gordon Strachan, is that I look forward to games in a way that I haven't, definitely didn't do under Pellegrino or Hughes, or even Puel for that matter, necessarily. Just thinking that we can always win, even despite all the form.
Yeah, well, I think this game was an interesting one, because you knew Liverpool, as brilliant as they are coming into it in a comparatively, and these things are all relative, aren't they? In a bad run of form.
A bad run of form which had left them at the top of the table.
Yeah, exactly. And they'd drawn 2 games that, Wolves and West Brom, which most people would love a draw against Wolves. So. Yeah, these things are all relative. I was a bit apprehensive, I had to say, when I saw the lineup, and particularly when I looked at the bench. We talk about Liverpool's injury problems, but all credit, look at the bench still. It's still got Shaqiri on it. It's still got Milner on it. It's still got Origi on it. Now, there are 3 European Cup winners. It's got Minamino on it. They've got 4 or 5 players on that bench that would get into they would get into a fair few Premier League teams. So, I found it a little bit we've got all these injuries. It's like, well, everyone's got injuries, mate. I found it a little bit kind of, I was still worried though. I have to say I was worried, because it's with those forwards, with Mane and Salah. Salah has an insane record against us, and so does Mane. So I wasn't confident.
So, I mean, that's all the build-up. We're exchanging messages on WhatsApp. Did your wife ask you about the briefing? Because Sophie looked really surprised when she was like, are you not watching the briefing? And I let out an audible laugh. I kind of laughed in her face. I felt a bit bad afterwards, but I was just like, pfft.
Yeah, well, look, I follow Robert Peston on Twitter, so I don't need to watch the briefings because I get it 2 hours in advance.
Yeah, I mean, I think Laura Koonsberg had leaked it all before anyway.
No, I mean, and look, I like a bit of positivity on a Monday night. I don't need there's enough depressing things in the world anyway, and better than to watch Saints play Liverpool at home in the first game of the new year.
Yeah, and I saw some fellow Saints fans describing weird situations in their house where in one room you would hear the words, we're being placed into a national lockdown, and then in the same moment you could hear cheers erupting from another room in the house. And of course, that ripple of cheers across the, especially across the south coast of England was not caused by people that, really looking forward to a lockdown again, but by a really fantastic early start from Saints. And what a goal from Danny Ings.
Yeah, what was interesting is that the goal was one thing, but Liverpool were clearly rattled because they've committed a number of fouls in that first 15 minutes. I think I had 2 players booked. But yeah, it was, if you talk through the goal, John, bit by bit, it's a stupid foul, isn't it, by Thiago?
Well, I mean, let's go back even before then, because it was good pressing from Diallo.
Yeah.
Who, let's remind you, he's only 21 years old, and it was only his second start in the Premier League. And I think we do need to talk about Diallo later, because he put in the kind of performance where if you've only watched the highlights, didn't get a chance to watch the game, I think you won't notice what Diallo did in that game. So I think we need to talk about that. Yeah, great pressing from Diallo. Armstrong wins the second ball. Fouled by Fabinho, again, stupid foul. Not, in the UN definition of James Ward-Prowse territory, but still in an area where James Ward-Prowse can be dangerous from. Yeah,
and Liverpool are not a very tall team, are they? Without Van Dijk and Gomez, their height is probably not something that comes to mind for them. So any opportunity for Saints to get that ball in the box with Ward-Prowse, they're going to do it. But let's talk about this goal because there's so much to like about it.
Yeah, and I've probably watched it about 20 times now, Tom, and every time I watch it, each angle reveals something else going on. It's like that amazing photograph, isn't it, from do you remember that photograph in Manchester with the guy lying across the road clutching his beer, and there's about 20 different stories taking place?
Yeah.
It's the same in this free kick. Not only is the distribution great, it's totally unusual. That's not normally where James Ward-Prowse would put the ball for that. We'd normally throw it into the sort of back post, wouldn't we, aiming for Vestergaard or Bednarek.
But doesn't Ward-Prowse motion that it's going to the back post?
Well, he does his hand up in the air thing. So, it was clearly worked out on the training ground. There was some hand signalling going on. Liverpool are playing with a high line, which they've clearly prepared for. Should we talk about Stuart Armstrong? Because Danny Ings revealed this in his post-match interview, didn't he? And that was the first thing I looked for after that.
There's a number of moving parts here, but I think the first one is, there's 2 I think are important. One is the jump of Walcott in front of Trent Alexander-Arnold, where he doesn't go anywhere near the ball. So
but totally distracts Alexander-Arnold from the real threat.
But then you're right. Stuart Armstrong pushing James Milner, pushing Jordan Henderson a yard into the box is just a work of absolute genius. And what's clever as well is if that was Van Dijk is just not moving, or probably Gomez. They're just not going anywhere. But obviously Saints know they're weak, and just by doing that little clever thing just gains Saints the yard they need.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that was another talking point, I think, Tom, that we should talk about offsides, because Saints do find themselves offside rather a lot. But that was so clever from Armstrong. And I think this shows a sort of level of tactical astuteness that we've not seen in a Saints side for a very long time. The dark arts, and we've talked about it with James Ward-Prowse. I don't really know why Danny Ings is revealing this to the world in his guys. Yeah, I guess it's one of those things that you want to show your workings where you've been really clever, and It is, but that's Saints being nasty, and that's Saints like doing things that other teams have done to Saints year after year, season after season, and we've fallen foul of. And it's so good that we've now got players that are willing to blur the boundaries around the rules of football to make it work in our favour. It's something we just haven't done enough of in the past. And Wenning said that when I watched it back and saw Armstrong doing it, I thought it was great. And shout out to my brother, who seemed to spot that before any of us did.
I think, yeah, you're right. I think also Armstrong is a nice guy, isn't he? He's like the guy that you'd want to date one of your friends. And so is James Ward-Prowse. And if they're doing this stuff...
what are the nasty guys doing?
The nasty guys doing, well, I don't know if Saints do have any bad eggs, really. I think Romeo maybe. But, yeah, it's S-Housery, as it's been described, and we just love to see it. Absolutely love to see it. Because if you're going to beat a team like Liverpool, you're going to have to, or Man City, you have to do everything you can. Well, it's nasty.
Exactly. And if you look at the most dominant force of the Premier League era, which, Manchester United won, 13 league titles in 26 seasons, half of all the Premier Leagues they've won. And their team has always been littered with players. Those Alex Ferguson winning teams have always been littered with players that are willing to do this sort of stuff.
Yep. Yeah, obviously Roy Keane's, but
But Van Nistelrooy as well was an expert at this sort of thing. There's so many of them. And this is before we've even got to the point of the finish. The no-look lob over Alisson into the top corner. I mean, this guy is a genius. Danny Ings is so good.
Yeah.
There's so much to love about him.
There's so much. I mean, he's just great, isn't he? Whatever it costs to get him to sign that new contract, they've just got to get him to sign it. But it's a great free kick. Walcott jumps in front of Alexander-Arnold, who seems to completely lose the flight of the ball. But there's still so much to do. And I think one of the great things about it is if the ball doesn't go in, I think, and it's going wide, I think Stevens gets a header. I think it's just a really clever move. But I totally believed that Ings was going for goal. And I think, and one of the great, not only was it a really good goal, not only was it a really important goal, and it was brilliant to see, but Ings been under a bit of pressure. He came back from that injury, he's not been quite right, just scored a penalty in that time. Saints have been flat. They needed a goal, didn't they? They needed an early goal.
Yeah.
And they got.
And we've been quite good at getting the early goals. So it was great to get that business done early. I think kind of what followed was less unnerving than I would have perhaps expected. I mean, if you take the game against Man City last season, it felt like they pushed us a bit more after that. I mean, even Arsenal were much more threatening after we went 1-0 ahead of them quite early on in the game 5 games ago. And, Liverpool had quite a lot of possession after this. I think overall it was about 2/3 Liverpool, 1/3 Saints. But they were always kind of crowded out on the edge of the box, having to push it wide. Mane and Salah weren't getting in the dangerous positions that you need to. Firmino was pretty much anonymous. And that is amazing work. And this is one of the things which Saints, I think Ralph has said before, that they like to try and get an early goal, because then they can crowd out teams, and that 4-4 or the 4-2-2-2 formation can allow you to crowd out the midfield, force teams wide. I thought Stevens and Bednarek did brilliant at blocking lots of crosses. Fraser Forster swiped a few away as well. The high ones Fraser Forster was kind of dealing with, the low ones Bednarek and Stevens were putting their body on the line. And Liverpool never really carved out a decent chance. I think the only chance which really had me worried was the through ball to Salah, which Forster blocked, but subsequently an offside was given anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think they didn't have their first shot on target until 75 minutes, and that was a very weak, almost pass, to be honest, from Mane. Yeah, and they huffed and they puffed a lot. But credit to Saints. You mentioned the centre-backs there, but also, Kyle Walker-Peters up against probably the best player in the world, Mane. That's
a big shout, that.
No, I think it is. I think, if you look at, maybe Lewandowski, but Sane could swing it. I think, but he didn't give him an inch, and they were brilliant. To a man, they were absolutely brilliant. They put their body on the line. A lot of Saints fans, give stick to Jack Stevens. I've got no idea why. You and I are better at our jobs were 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know why people can't see the fact that Jack Stevens is better at his job than he was 4 or 5 years ago. He left everything on that pitch, him and Bednarek. And I think, all credit to Saints because, I saw a statistic on some Liverpool fans on The Athletic saying, well, we dominated the game. Southampton had 44 clearances in the box. But that's just generally, in my view, Liverpool were just kind of reduced to sort of hitting and hoping it into the box. There wasn't, they didn't work Forster, really.
No.
And you think that you'd think they're coming off the pitch saying, as soon as they knew Forster's playing, they go, right, test him, and they didn't do it.
But Saints didn't even let them get a shot away from the edge of the area, or even 25 yards away.
They were very speculative. When they were shooting, they were leaning back. They were shooting because they kind of run out.
Oh, there were a couple of good row Zs, weren't there, in there?
Yeah, I all credit to Saints, and they were, to a man, they were brilliant. But I mean, John, who stood out for you?
Well, before we kind of move on to who stood out, there's a few more talking points I'd like to pick up from the game. So I thought Djenepo injury, but then Teller coming on was an interesting shout, and I think it worked.
I felt sorry for Djenepo because he was actually having a really good game.
He was, wasn't he? He was fired up. He was doing really well.
He was defending well, and I think he had the measure of Alexander Armstrong.
Alexander Armstrong.
From Pointless, isn't he?
Yeah. Alexander Arnold.
So, he had the measure of him, and he'd beaten him a couple of times, and he seemed genuinely upset.
He was in tears when he came off, I think.
Yeah.
And Teller comes on, which I think is a big shout, but also Teller had a really good chance. Amazing play to kind of create the chance. I think a flick on from Ings, but then Teller took it really nicely, made the space for himself, and just curled it wide of the post. A little bit more whip on it, and that would have been 2-0. I also thought we've already mentioned Kyle Walker-Peters, who I thought was doing really well against Mane, but also Bertrand kept Salah very quiet as well.
Yeah.
He gave a great tackle on him in the box, didn't he, which had a VAR check, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And Fabinho just couldn't cope with the midfield battle at all. He got booked and then committed another 5 or 6 fouls, I think I counted.
Do you mean Thiago?
Yeah, sorry, not Fabinho, yeah. Thiago, yeah.
I mean, Thiago looked very rattled, but my God, what a footballer. Yeah, didn't he? Like when he had, there was a bit where he volleys a ball across the pitch and starting an attack. What a footballer. But yeah, I think the thing is,
it's a great footballer, but that wasn't the game for him, was it? That was a battle, that game.
Yeah, and you got like Ward-Prowse snapping into everything, Diallo snapping into everything, Armstrong, back to his best, like brilliant defending and attacking.
I think that's the best we've seen from Armstrong since he came back from COVID.
Oh, 100%. He looked well up for it. He signed that new deal, which is great news for the club. Him and Walker-Peters were unstoppable. There's no one, to a man, they were brilliant. Yeah. And Ings' movement to create that Teller chance was fantastic. And Saints went into half-time pretty comfortable.
Yeah, we did. Following half-time, I think, that we've talked about Mane's kind of Liverpool's only shot. We had Stevens' nice sliding block when Mane was trying to put it across goal. I thought that was good, but Forster had it covered anyway. We had the Mane penalty shout, and I've got to admit, when I saw him go down, I thought, oh, that's it, that's a penalty.
Do you mean the tackle from Walker-Peters?
Yeah.
Yeah, my initial reaction was it's a pen.
Yeah, and I've got to say, Andre Mariner's not my favourite referee, but he got this absolutely right, because the first time I saw it, I thought it was a pen to Liverpool. The second time I saw it, I thought it was a pen to Liverpool. Third time I saw it, I thought it was a penalty to Liverpool. And it was only about the fourth or fifth times, once I'd had what was going on explained to me, that I saw that it wasn't a penalty, and even then it was still a little bit.
I think I'm surprised it wasn't given.
Yeah.
Being Liverpool, but I think it's a good example of a player's reputation preceding them, because Mane does the legs get tangled. Mane takes an extra step and then sort of throws himself.
I think kind of what worked in Kyle Walker-Peters' favour when they showed the replay is he clearly pulls out of the tackle when he realises he's not going to get it.
And I was listening to Talk Sport this morning, and they had Andros Townsend on, who's very good and very erudite, intelligent commentator, and he was saying, not all contact is a penalty. Just because you make contact, it doesn't make it a penalty. And his view is that it wasn't a penalty. But my initial reaction was, it looked like a pen. But so you need that luck at times.
Yeah, I'd kind of like emotionally sort of checked out at that point, and I was just waiting for Liverpool to sort of like, give myself a 30-second breather before we finish the penalty. So then when I just saw play continue, I was just like, oh, this is great. Glad this is going on. And then
also, checks, they were fast, weren't they?
Yeah, they were quick. They were better at it.
Sorry.
New Year's resolution, quicker VAR checks. They're stuck to it so far. Well done. And actually, we've mentioned the Mane chance in the 74th minute, but the next biggest chance in the game after the Saints goal, the Teller shot, was actually the Valerie nutmeg of Alisson, which just didn't quite have the legs, did it?
It reminded me of, you remember Stuart Armstrong's goal against Aston Villa last season. But let's all say a player that's a bit maligned, a bit unfancied, came on and did a great job, didn't he? Valerie, he really shored up that right-hand side. And desperately unlucky not to score. Yeah,
I mean, he was really, really good. And it really surprised me when he brought Valerie on for Walcott, who I thought had been doing really well, by the way.
Just didn't have anyone else, though, did he, John?
Sorry?
He just didn't have anyone else. I mean...
Yeah, I mean, I suppose not, but it seemed more thoughtful for that than that. And I thought Dan and Lundulu as well was causing havoc for Liverpool.
He looks a good player.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Teller, Lundulu, Diallo, Valerie, when he came on him, and he wasn't on for very long, and obviously that's not his position, but maybe that's an option.
Yeah, he was disciplined, didn't he? And also Robertson, what a player he is, and everything they did through Robertson. And he can really just do anything, can't he, wants. And it made sense to shore up that right-hand side. And also Theo's probably knackered at that point. By this point, we're unlucky not to win this game by more.
Yeah. I mean, it's astounding, really. And then there's that great stat, Tom. So the Saints have now beaten every Premier League title winner the season after they've won the title.
Yeah. What a weird stat.
It's really weird, isn't it?
But we'll take it.
Yeah.
So the final whistle goes.
Ralph collapses into tears.
Fit of tears.
I think this is a big thing for Ralph, because I've been trying to work out. I mean, we heard the audio clip earlier, and I think he genuinely felt like, with the team that he had, the players that he had playing against Liverpool, it would take a tactical mastermind to get anything from them, which, okay, tick. Subs, brilliant, tick. Every player on the pitch gave absolutely everything. You throw that other one in. He's got a dreadful record against Jurgen Klopp. I think he's lost every managerial battle he's had against him, and the trailer. So Arsenal. And you've got to think of the stress of last week of his wife testing positive for COVID. He's a little bit older than we are, Tom. There's a chance that can affect him. And say, I think this was just an outpouring of emotion. And he said as well how horrible he found the experience of watching the West Ham United game at home. And one of the things I've enjoyed about lockdown football is not having the fake crowd noise on and just listening to Ralph. He talks the whole way through the match. He guides the players. Yeah, he tells them what to do. Yeah, he is every single position on that pitch.
Yeah, and I think the emotional response, it's funny because I was listening to the radio this morning, they were taking the mick a bit, saying what film should Ralph not watch? He shouldn't watch Up. And it made me think.
For me, it's Paddington 2, Tom.
Well, any of the Paddingtons, to be honest, John. But there's a lot of talk, isn't there, about men not showing their emotions and stuff. And I actually thought it was, and the damage that brings. And I actually thought it was brilliant to see Ralph just sort of let it go. And I think, because it's just good to see how much he cares. But also I think he cares because you're right, a lot of players missing against probably the world's best team, who, even though they've got players missing themselves, still have two of the world's best, probably 5 or 6 forwards playing. Still have the world's best fullbacks. Still have Thiago. Still have incredible players. But also, I think maybe it's because, maybe if we'd have had our first choice 11 out there and we'd have won, he might have thought that. But maybe it's because it shows the kind of the training and drumming it into the players, so that in the end, it does matter that our front two are Nlundulu and Teller, and it doesn't matter that Valerie is playing on the right wing, and it doesn't matter that you've got Diallo, who's starting his second game and has only played 5 games before that in the French top flight. It doesn't matter because he's coached. And maybe that's what it's about as a coach. Maybe it's about the fact that it shows that he's having an impact, because there's no way in hell Saints would have held on under any other manager.
Not a chance. And the emotion's a really good point, because it's the way that fans connect with a manager.
Yeah.
The reason there's like football appreciation, isn't there, where you go to watch good players and appreciate good football. And then there's supporting a team, which is a massive emotional investment. It's huge. I worry about Saints much more than I should do. It consumes a large portion of my daily thoughts. My heart rate while sat on the sofa reached a peak of 106 beats per minute last night, Tom, which is not
That's not good, John.
That's not normal. Like that's a physical, emotional reaction to the team. And I think it's so much worse when a manager doesn't show any emotion. I think with Claude Puel, the only emotion we saw was in that semi-final when Shane Long scored and he finally celebrated. And it's just like, when you as a fan invest loads of money, time and emotion into a side, to see a manager that cares as much, maybe whisper it, maybe he cares more than some of us, Tom. Like,
I'm sure he does. He's invested, John, and also he's there by all accounts every single day, working insane hours. And you've got to remember, he's had a proper, tragedy loop, with the game that shall not be named, and to come back. And if you think there's a number of high points on the way back, there's Leicester at Leicester. There's milestones, isn't there? And then I think the Man City game is another milestone. And I would actually put last night, I think those are kind of the 3 most important results, because they all for different reasons. One is exercising a demon, one is the second Man City game is about backs to the wall, holding on. And then last night was about out fighting and out tactically thinking. Probably the best,
arguably the best manager with the best squad.
Yeah. And what he's entitled to be emotional. He's entitled to feel it. And Saints have sat through a number of managers in recent years who, to use Pellegrino, that are just kind of robots. Don't really. I'm sure they cared, but they never showed it. And rightly or wrongly, Saints fans want to see people who care.
Which was the game where Ralph came in at the end and said it's scary? Was that when we topped the table? Briefly.
Yeah, well, I think that was when he said, I'm scared of what this team can do.
Yeah. And I think that also shows because you look at the squad, the depth isn't there. The players, James Ward-Prowse was a fringe player when he started. He's now with a really good shout of being on in the squad for Euro 2021 if it happens. Danny Ings, reborn. Chadham's become, absolutely a Premier League player. Theo Walcott, finding this new form. Stuart Armstrong has been brilliant as well. Jack Sedved, Arthur goal plus the best back in the league. You then, throwing in the sort of Teller, Danlan Dooley, you've got Diallo coming through. Has just been, absolutely fantastic. And you just go through what he's done with that team, and he was scared. He found it scary when Saints were performing well enough to be top of the league. He's just beaten Liverpool, and okay, it's a bit frustrating that we haven't beaten Arsenal, Man City, Fulham, West Ham, whatever. He could arguably none of them are as good as this Liverpool side. But also that emotion, I think, is just like I think he realises now how important it is, because once you've beaten Liverpool, you can beat anyone. He's beaten Liverpool. He's beaten City last season. We can beat anyone, so therefore anything is possible.
Yeah, and we ran Man United close. They're second in the league. We gave Man City a hell of a game. Those are if anyone wins the league that's not Saints, it's going to be one of those three teams, and we've taken them all pretty much to the wire. Why not? And I think, yes, we've got a paper thin squad, but we're not playing in Europe. We're out of the Carabao Cup. We've got a fairly generous third round tie in the FA Cup. That period of manic games that we've just gone through, touch wood, we might have it.
Not many teams have come out of it particularly well, probably apart from Man United, haven't they?
Yeah, and I think Romeo's going to be back in a week or two. Probably back for the Leicester game. Ings is clearly back and is clearly fit. McCarthy will hopefully be back, and then you're looking just with Vestergaard down. All credit to them. They were just magnificent last night, John. I mean, I can't remember a better performance. I think it was better than the Man City game, because the Man City game had an element of luck about. I think they still. How many shots did Man City have in that game? Liverpool had very little last night to worry Saints.
Yeah. So, I mean, Tom, one of the interesting things you just said, Romeo's coming back. Does Romeo have to be a little bit worried here?
Diallo's silky. Diallo looks good, doesn't he? I mean, he looks like he's more comfortable running with the ball than Romeo does. And there was a moment last night where I can't remember who's fouled by, it might have been Thiago again, where he drops the spin around him. And you just thought, like, this guy is going to be a serious player. And you're right. He didn't sort of, you wouldn't know the name if you just watched the highlights. And I know the comparisons to Kante are probably a bit lazy because they're both defensive midfielders from France that no one had really heard of before. But he looked like he did the simple things really well.
I tell you what, he looked a hell of a lot better than Kante did against Man City.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, and also it's an £11 million player, which obviously is a lot of money to you and me, John, but in Premier League football terms, it's not.
I think it's scary that a player can come in, was kind of in my head thinking he was going to be in a real shout for Player of the Season so far.
Yep.
He's been absolutely outstanding. And he probably should get his place back in the team, but isn't he?
Well, Diallo will play against Shrewsbury, you imagine. He's not going to risk Romeo in that game. And then he has a really difficult decision to make against Leicester. But also the emergence of Diallo might give Ward-Prowse a rest. I know Ward-Prowse is the fittest player in the Premier League, but sooner or later he's going to need a rest.
Ward-Prowse is probably looking at his maybe 39th year as the chance to have a rest.
Yeah.
Top level professional from the age of 16 to 38, I think he'll be.
Yeah. Diallo looks fantastic, and I think he didn't look out of place, did he, last night? There's not one moment where he kind of looked like he did look lost. And bear in mind, he's playing against Wijnaldum, Thiago. They're no mugs.
No. Fraser Forster, I mean, here was his first clean sheet for Saints for a very long time. It's his first performance for Saints for a long time. How did you think he got on?
So it was his first game for 10 months.
Yeah.
I think in March for Celtic. He looked a bit shaky, didn't he, at the start? His kicking looked a little bit off, to be generous.
He stopped trying to pass it out from the back, didn't he?
Yeah, he just started lumping it.
Yeah, which I was more comfortable with anyway.
Yeah, because it looked like the passes were going to go wrong, and I think a couple of them did. But I think what did in the world of good, and you mentioned it already, was that challenge on Salah. I mean, it was offside, but he didn't know that at the time. I think that did him. That was the moment where you were like, you know what, he can do this. And I think he claimed a couple of crosses, and anyways, it was kind of a free shot for Saints, wasn't it? If they'd lost, or if he'd conceded 3 or 4 goals, as long as they weren't all his fault, no one would have minded, because it's Liverpool and that's just what they do to people. But what's that? He got 5 clean sheets in 6 games, 6 career games against Liverpool now. He must want to play him every week. But I thought he was so interesting, hitting constantly.
He's the quietest person, Tom, normally, isn't he? Just whispers to his defenders.
But they've obviously, to succeed at Saints, if he wants that number 1 slot off Alex McCarthy, and there's no reason why he can't have it. I mean, everything's up for grabs in that team. He's going to need to do what he's done, which is learn to play with his feet, which is what McCarthy's done, and be a more dominating presence, which is what McCarthy's done. I thought he played well overall. Yeah,
I thought so. Tom, are there any other players you want to give a shout out to before we move on to some of the other stuff?
I thought Danny Ings had a really good game.
Yeah.
Outside of the goal, it was kind of Danny Ings back to his best, wasn't it? In terms of he was defending. There was a great moment in the second half where he chases down Alexander Armstrong and
you said it again. Alexander-Arnold.
Alexander-Arnold. I've got to stop that. I watch too much Pointless.
Isn't it also Dougie as well?
Watch a lot of Hey Dougie as well now. I love Hey Dougie. But yeah, and he chases him down. I don't know if you remember this, John, and he blocks it.
Yeah.
And you're like, he leads from the front. And just Saints look just better with him in, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, I also want to give shouts out to Stephen, those Bednarine, Bertrand performances for a little while. It's understated, but this is the thing with Bertrand, is you don't necessarily have to notice him for him to be doing really well. He managed his part of the pitch really, really well last night.
Yeah. And he's played 201 games for Saints. He's a remarkable servant. And he looked very good, but also Carl Walker-Peters, John.
Was he your man of the match, Tom?
Yeah. I mean, he is surely not that much of an outside bet. If we're talking about James Ward-Prowse going to the European Championships, there's no reason why Carl Walker-Peters can't go.
I don't know. Is Gareth Southgate watching these games? I mean, that's the question, isn't he? He's not showing up in stadiums anymore.
No, you'd hope so. But I mean, who have we got right? We've got
Walker.
Alexander-Arnold, Carl Walker, who is a nightmare and a liability, and Kieran Trippier, he loves gambling. So
I think all 3 of those will be ahead of Carl Walker-Peters, and I don't necessarily think that all 3 of them are better, but I think they'll all be ahead of him.
Yeah. He's only young.
Yeah. I thought the subs were all brilliant. We've already talked about that question here, Tom. I mean, I think I know what your answer is going to be, because you've said you think he's the best player in the world. But genuine question to our listeners. Email in. Sadio Mane or Danny Ings? Who would you rather have? And as I'm not saying who's the best player, I'm just saying right now, who would you rather have in this same team with this man?
You'd take Ings, because I think the players look up to Ings, don't they?
Yeah.
They're always like a sort of like best looking kid at school captain of the school football team, which I bet Danny Ings was both of those, vibe about him. And I think as well, there's a lovely hierarchy, like an old school hierarchy with Ings, where Adams is the number 2 striker, but that's not actually a demeaning thing.
Yeah.
Like his job is to make life difficult for people and get chances for Danny Ings and score a few goals. Ings loves it. I mean, God, I think we all wish we were Danny Ings.
That would be childhood dreams. 50th Premier League goal for him.
Yeah. Brilliant for Saints. I mean, he's got like 37, I think, of those for Saints in the Premier League.
It'd be great if he could hit 50 for Saints this season, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And there's no reason why he can't. We've got over half the season to go. If he stays fit, there's every reason he could do that. And he could.
So, Tom, one of the other talking points, and say I'm going to be real nitpicker here, but it's actually I'm nitpicking a little bit from the last 4 or 5 games, should we say?
Yep.
Offsides. I think Southampton Football Club have a problem with offsides.
John, where are we in the league table for offsides?
Well, it's funny that you should say that, Tom, because I have the league table for offsides in front of me right now. Leeds United are number 1. They've been offside 40 times this season. Manchester United are number 2. They've been offside 36 times this season. And Southampton are 3rd, and they've been offside 35 times this season.
That's only about, just over twice a game? Feels like more.
It does feel like more. I mean, it's certainly more last night, wasn't it? I mean, there was one where Stuart Armstrong just didn't release the ball early enough.
Yes.
Well,
I think it was it?
Yeah. And yeah, I guess
we had 2 goals chalked off.
3 goals chalked off in the last 3 games for offsides.
Yes, you're right. So, is it not so much that we're getting loads of offsides, although we are getting more than most teams in the league? Is it that our offsides, because of our overperforming XG, to talk like you, is it that we're noticing the offsides more? Because, like you say, that's cost us 3 goals.
Yeah, maybe we're noticing it more. I mean, there's no doubt that if we're the 3rd worst in the Premier League, there's definitely something there. If you're seeing it and then there's a statistical evidence base for it, then I think that's definitely there's something to be considered there. I guess it's frustrating as well. Proof that I've celebrated and then have been chalked off, so I felt it more.
Yep.
Than normal. But also, I don't know. I think Theo Walcott seems to find himself offside quite a lot, although Che Adams is actually our worst offender in the league for offsides.
Is this just a consequence of the football we play, where we play high pitch?
Maybe, but I also feel like if we release the ball just that tiny little fraction quicker, or our strikers were a little bit more intelligent in sort of running along the side before they sprint forward, then we would be scoring even more goals.
Yeah, I think offside's a funny one, isn't it? Because players are so fast now, and centre-backs are also fast. In the old days, centre-backs were obviously like big fat lumps, and now they're actually just superb athletes like everyone else on the pitch. Saints don't generally take shots from distance, do we? Really? I think that's kind of we eschew doing that. So a lot of play involves the 2 10s trying to get in and alongside the forwards and make overload. So I wonder if in the nature of that sort of style of football, flooding the red zone, overloading defenders, and really trying to kind of be quite forensic with our. Well, I wonder if it lends itself to more. I think just Charlton takes more chances and it takes more risks.
Yeah,
teams in the past, and that's the consequence of if offsides are the price we pay for that, then I think Ralph will still be happy with it.
Yeah. So basically, you're telling me to back off, Tom. Let Saints have their offsides. If things are going well, then
yeah, but let them. They've got a system that works. They've got a system that's working for them, and part of that obviously is not working perfectly, but they're going to get teams are going to catch them offside.
Do you want to hear another kind of ridiculous stat?
Go on then.
The exact same fixtures last season, so the homes and the aways. We've actually got fewer points from the teams that we've played and the games that we've played.
Interesting. I guess because we beat Palace away, we beat Tottenham at home.
Yeah.
And those are 2 games we lost. We beat
Man City at home.
So those are 3 games. 3 of our 4 losses. We had 4. Yeah, 3 of our 4 losses we won last year.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What does that tell us? Tell us the form, or does not mean anything at all?
Well, in theory, it should tell us that we're underperforming on what we were doing last season. I felt like we had a good season last season. Well, we had a good second half of the season, didn't we? And a bad first half of the season. You know, that's kind of the story of last year. But also, I suppose, you know, if we reflect, this is our first game of 2021. 2020, Saints were, I think, the 5th or 6th best team in the calendar year season.
Fourth best team, I think, after, was it Man City, Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea?
Yeah,
I think.
maybe Man United or
May 5th, yeah. The calendar year thing is funny because it doesn't mean anything, but also it does mean a lot.
Well, it shows a sort of a season length consistency, doesn't it?
Yes, and also I think it shows, you know, the game that shall not be named was October 2019. If you use not that as the springboard, but the Everton game after it, which we all agree was probably a worse,
yeah,
and probably where we all thought Ralph would say bye. Since then, that Arsenal game that we went to, Saints have just been pretty unstoppable.
Yeah, they've been good. There've been a couple of clangers, but not many.
No, and I think the clangers, touch wood, seem to be getting fewer and further between. I'm trying to think, what's a clanger we've had where we've really, I mean, losing, being 2-0 up at home to Wolves, that's a clanger.
2-0 at home to Man United was a bit of a clanger.
Yeah, but they're rare now.
And the Tottenham game, I think, was a clanger.
But I think a way to think about the Tottenham game is maybe much like the Leicester game, which I've just named, even though I said I wouldn't name it, had to happen to affect change. The Tottenham game had to happen to affect change. Maybe you just have to go through these things at times to have real radical change. Something pretty dire sometimes has to happen.
Yeah. So let's have a look back at the previous 4 fixtures. We drew 0-0 with West Ham. We drew 0-0 with Fulham. Anything to say on those, Tom?
I think a lot of the time, me included, Saints fans were pretty miserable after those 2 games. I actually think that when the season is over, I think actually the West Ham point will look like a pretty good one, and I think the Fulham point will look like not a bad one.
Yeah, I mean, getting a point away from home, I think, even if it is one of the relegation battlers, it's better than losing.
Yeah, and clean sheets.
Yeah, and then we also had the Arsenal-Man City games, which I thought were both interesting, because Arsenal and Man City both did the same thing. When Arsenal went down to 10 men, they defended like they were playing against peak Barcelona. Man City did the same against Southampton. What does that say? I wonder if that's a bigger statement almost than the Liverpool game. How many times would a Man City side, Pep Guardiola led Man City side, go out and defend a 1-0 lead like that? They would normally go out and try and score more goals, wouldn't they?
Well, they normally try and win about 6-0, don't they?
Yeah.
I think they gave Man City a really good game. I think, Guardiola said that after the game, and Ralph wasn't particularly upset with the loss. What's interesting with Ralph is he doesn't seem to get annoyed about losing. He gets annoyed about the performance. So if we lose and play well, like we did against Man City, he's generally fine with it. He seems to be super relaxed about it. It's when we play poorly that, like Man United, he seemed to take it publicly in pretty good way. Disappointed but proud of the performance. You're right. I mean, Saints are probably, this is why the Leicester game is really interesting, because 2 really horrible teams to play against. But you can't imagine there's any team in the league that wants to play Saints right now.
No.
And we're 4 points off the summit, John. Anything can happen here.
Oh, it's great, isn't it? God, it really is great. Who would have thought that in the new year we'd be 4 points from the top of the league?
Yeah, and the thing is as well, this is not now, we spoke about the Newcastle game. We are now nearly, depending on which club you're looking at, halfway through the season.
Yeah.
and we played a lot of hard games. We played Chelsea away, played Man City, played Man United, played Liverpool. There's a lot to play for Saints here, and I don't know where they're highly unlikely to win the league, but is top 4 place out of the possibility? I don't think it is.
Tom, I think as long as even winning the league is a possibility, it's amazing.
Yeah,
it's so enjoyable.
Yeah, and I think as well, if you look at, we've got some difficult games coming up, but they'll fancy it. They'll this. We've got Leicester, then we've got Leeds away. Well, who knows what's going to happen there? Arsenal at home, Saints will fancy that, and then Villa at home, Saints will fancy that.
Then Man United, revenge.
Yes, Rwenge. It's really exciting. Ralph is just a hero amongst men, and the team, to a man, they're brilliant.
Tom, I'm going to move on to a different topic now, which is listener emails. So the last time we spoke, we talked about how our listener figures were going up in America, and put in a bit of a request, asking listeners why do they support Saints, and say, this is where people from the North American continent are better than British people. So I don't know how many podcasts you listen to and how many you've actually ever written into or engaged with the podcast host or sent an email into. But us Brits, we're not very good at that sort of thing. Americans and Canadians are great at it. And so we've got I'm going to read a handful of emails from some of our listeners. And one of the things which I was finding interesting is why are these people who live on the other side of the world supporting the Saints? So firstly, we've got Brinsley, massive supporter over here in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Always listen to the pod, and I think I have done from close to when we started. He meant out the support was based on a bit of an extensive search into fan history, where the family lived before they left the UK for Canada in the early 1900s. Back in 2013, we had decided to find a Premier League team to support, and the criteria was it needed to be an area my family had lived at some point, as we had the family tree going back many, many years, but also couldn't be a front runner, so didn't want to support one of the big teams. Narrowed it down to a couple of teams, but the deal was sealed when I found this attached postcard in some papers that I inherited from my great granny. And as soon as I saw it, the deal was sealed, and I have been a diehard ever since. I get up at 7 a.m. sometimes, even as early as 4 a.m. to watch every match. Went to a match a few years back and can't wait to make further trips. This was a letter written from her to my great-grandfather, who was in the British military over in India. Great-granny and the family had just sold their home, which was in the Southampton area, and we were staying in Southampton before coming to Canada. What I hadn't noticed until a few years after discovering the postcard at the bottom is that, as they said, they watched the Titanic sail out. A neat little tie-in, but maybe if I had seen it, a foreshadowing Saints, a roller coaster, I should have known any team I picked would bring as much pain as Nooks, which is ice hockey, and they're cresting 50 years of utter disappointment. He's 47. So there we go. So what we've been sent is a postcard of the Bargate in Southampton, and then a lovely postcard from his granny, all linking to Southampton. So that's pretty good reason, Tom.
Yeah, that's cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm amazed that there's always when I lived for a year in Texas, and I was always amazed because one of the good things about living in America is you can watch any football game on TV. And I used to go to a bar called Fado in Austin at the games would start at 9 a.m, and it was always amazing how many football fans are in the pub. They're in the pub at 9 a.m. Yeah, proper dedication.
Oh, it's great, isn't it? Let's entitled Weird American Fan. Jeremy, we don't think you're weird. I'm just going to put that out there. So this one's from Jeremy. He's written a 2-part email. I'm just going to read part 1 because otherwise we'll be here for quite a long time. He came into the Southampton fandom with the hiring of Ronald Koeman. Wasn't following him, just happened to come in at the same time he became manager. Probably one of the stupidest stories. I was doing my family genealogy and my mother family. We from it. As I began tracking down the family members, I ended up in the area circa 859. I mean, that is going back. He's done a good effort there on his family tree. Gone back to the year 859. So being stuck at that point, the next logical step was to pick a Premier League club to follow based on the proximity to my long-gone ancestors. Seeing that Southampton were just down the road, I jumped on that train and never left, not even after discovering that the lineage I tracked down was wildly incorrect. So I have no idea where my family is from, but I'm now a Saints fan and call that a win any day of the week. So both of them coming from family trees and both of them thinking it was a weird way to do it. I was going to say I was very impressed that he'd managed to track his family tree all the way back to 859 because that's a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, in America as well, that's like not Birth of a Nation stuff, but it's not. What is it? Yeah, it's not far off Birth of a Nation.
No, it's way before America was found. It was discovered by Columbus. I mean, obviously there were people the year 859, not 1859. Over 1,000 years ago, Tom.
This is like a lot of like people that claim they're related to, I don't know, someone super like Genghis Khan and stuff. I'm never sure about this, John.
Yeah.
But impressive.
Do you want to hear more?
Yeah, go on, give us one more.
So we've got Nate. My name is Nate. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I've been a die-hard Southampton supporter since the 3rd of October 2016. Very precise. I like that, Nate. Reason I became a Southampton fan was due to my former soccer coach, and he says he's not going to apologise. No, he is going to apologise for using the word soccer instead of football, but he can't help it. Became a Southampton fan was due to my former soccer coach requiring all of his players to watch Premier League matches every weekend. He encouraged all of his players to watch professional soccer games to be exposed to a high level of tactics. One weekend I turned on NBC Sports, and the very first Premier League game that I watched was Southampton 3-1 thumping of Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. That was a good game, wasn't it, that one?
Which one was that? That was the...
Was that Graziano Pella?
Oh, Stephen Davis.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a great game. Yeah, Pella scored. And Mane scored as well, I think.
Yeah. From that point on, I've been hooked on Saints, not missing a single game since watching. The euphoric reactions of the Southampton away support that day brought a feeling of raw joy and excitement that I still feel every time I watch a Southampton match. To follow up Tom's hypothesis for why Southampton is appealing to foreign supporters, I agree with everything he said. I can't even remember what he said now last time, Tom. It was so long ago. To add on, I think the reason why Southampton is growing a much larger audience in America is because fans of the Big Six are extremely annoying. Same over here. Many of the Man United and Arsenal fans that I've encountered can't even name more than 2 or 3 players from their club, even though they walk around wearing their club's kit all the time. I'm not saying there aren't any respectable Big Six supporters in America, but there is a high percentage of glory hunters. It's safe to say that soccer has become trendy in America, which has led to an oversaturation of Big Six supporters who don't actually have a passion for the sport. The reason why many Americans get hooked on Southampton is the tribal awe about the club. The togetherness of the Southampton fans riding the road supporting Southampton cannot be matched by any other club, and I guarantee that any Southampton fan you'll encounter from outside the UK has a deep admiration for the club, because why else would anyone support this team?
Yeah, and wasn't there a documentary in America about Saints as well, which has made them quite popular, like an NBC Sports documentary or something?
Yeah, that's we've definitely
come across that before, haven't we? Yeah, but I sometimes click on the comments on football things, and
you go below the line, Tom. That's a dangerous game to do on the internet.
Commentary comes from non-UK, non-UK based soccer fans, let's just say. But Saints is a family, and we welcome everyone to this church, John.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd love to hear from some more listeners as well, especially, we've had a few highlights there from the North American continent. Tell us about your supporting of Saints from Asia, Africa.
Well, the numbers. Where do we get listeners from? You're tuned into this kind of tech wizardry.
Yeah, I mean, I can let me dial in, Tom, to the stats.
But yeah,
which is just currently loading here. I mean, why did you start supporting Saints? I know we've covered this before, Tom, a while back, but
yeah, mum and dad from the New Forest, from Blackfield near Langley, and my dad got 2 tickets to the 1976 Cup final, and he took my mum, who he was dating at the time, and not my uncle. And it's still a mere 40-something years on, still a bone of contention between the two of them. My Uncle Johnny, who I think might be listening to this podcast, I'm sorry about that, John. Mum and dad, and he, so this is a story. sorry, just humour me a second. My dad's support is from Southampton. I think my dad's granddad was originally from Halifax, and they moved to the New Forest because my dad's granddad, when he was a little boy, had like bad asthma, bad lungs, and they were like, you need to move away from the smoky north and move somewhere where the air is clean. So he moved the family. His parents, I think, moved the family from Halifax to the New Forest for the clean air, and now they settled there for a number of years. So yeah, all about family, John.
Yeah.
Yourself, you've got proper Southampton heritage, haven't you?
Well, I mean, again, it's a family connection. So when I was interested in football, my great granny revealed that her father was a football player. So not my great granny, my granny revealed that. So it was my great grandfather. It was Albert Hoskins, or Bert Hoskins. You can look him up. It's on saintsplayers.co.uk. Played for Saints, managed Wolves, a few other clubs he was involved in. So that was. But we used to go to the football with my granny quite a lot, and she's been to cup finals and everything. Tom, she has proper football heritage.
Yeah. Well, my dad with his dad, and he used to £50 stop pay for the kid, and apparently he used to turn up at the Dell would open at 12, and all games were at 3 o'clock on a Saturday. And maybe some fans who are more mature fans than us can confirm this, but I think he used to open 11:30, and they used to just sit there, and then the players would come out at 2:45 for a warm up, which involved kicking some balls at each other. 2:50, go back in, and then the game would start. They warm up for 6 minutes.
It's mad, isn't it?
And then go back up. My dad used to sit next to Nick Holmes' mum.
There we go.
Yeah, so a little bit Saints heritage.
I mean, Tom, I could tell you the areas where we have a lot of supporters. So, I mean, we've got a lot in the US, Australia, Norway, Canada, Ireland, Spain, Hong Kong. I suppose it's not surprising with the large expat community. Lots of European countries down here, and places like New Zealand, South Africa, where there's quite a lot of British people. I suppose kind of getting into the sort of weirder areas, Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines, Cayman Islands, Bahrain, Bermuda.
Well, if any of our Bermudian...
Myanmar. I'd love to know who's listening Myanmar.
Well, if any of the fans in Bermuda or the Cayman Islands want to have want to put us up and have an in-person podcast for, if they want to put us up for a couple of weeks in their beach houses, we can do that, John. We're flexible.
How about this? Listeners in Nepal, I wonder if there's someone scaling Everest using the Saints FC podcast as motivation. Go on, push. You can make the summit.
Yeah. Nepal. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah, but let us know. Maybe we'll come up with some sort of prize. If the most obscure place that you're listening to the FC. Well, in a global pandemic that's locked down.
Yeah. Well, Matthew Markstone, who's a good listener and friend of the podcast, he came over, didn't he, John, to watch games?
Yeah, from California, which is great. Big
Brilliant.
shout out to Matt if you're listening.
Yeah.
Tom, next up is the FA Cup. FA Cup third round. I love the FA Cup, but I'm really excited about Saints in the Premier League at the moment as well.
The Shrews on Saturday, 8 p.m. Doesn't feel right, does it, for an FA Cup third round tie?
No, but at least it's after kids' bedtime. I'm very anti 6 p.m. kickoffs, by the way. Doesn't work with my lifestyle.
Well, for me, and that's bed and bath time.
Yeah.
Which is, causes problems. So I agree, John. If Saints could avoid 6 p.m s, that would be great. And also, I don't think we've record.
There's not a large sample size there. Is the FA Cup match against Shrewsbury? We win, didn't we? His fourth set.
So Shrewsbury, I looked at Shrewsbury. I looked at this. They are not doing great. I think it's fair to say in League One. They're 16th or 17th in League One. But anything can happen. Steve Cotterill, the manager, is he ex-Saints? I've just made that up.
I think he might be.
But look, I think that what's interesting about this game is he's not ex-Saints. We've just made that up completely, John. Sorry about that.
Ex-Bournemouth, that was close.
It's the same part of the world. But we're going to see. I think he obviously needs to rest some players, doesn't he? This game comes at the right time So who do we think? We see Forster's going to get a game. We might see the lesser spotted Sue.
I mean, Shrewsbury have caused one of the biggest FA Cup upsets before, where they beat Everton. Knocked Everton out of the FA Cup relatively recently, 2003.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's a long time ago, John. But, I think we'll see Valerie get a game. You'll probably see Vokins, Salisu. I think you'll probably stick with Stevens or Bednarek. Ward-Prowse obviously has to play every game.
Didn't Shrewsbury play against Liverpool last season in the FA Cup?
Your FA Cup knowledge is better than mine. Looks like they might have done, actually. Yeah, they were held to a 2-2 draw.
So we shouldn't
take these guys lightly.
No.
Yeah, you're right, John. That's a fascinating piece of... It was nearly a year ago, that game. Yeah, so...
Can't imagine why we would have forgotten stuff that happened in January last year, Tom. I mean, practically nothing's happened since.
No, I'd been a dad for 2 weeks by that point, so my mind was fresh as a daisy. But yeah, I think we'll see. Shane Long's going to probably get a game.
Do you think he will? I don't think he will. I think it's going to be Lundulu and Teller up front.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting.
I think so. But yeah, I think we might see Salisu, which is a real treat.
That would be a surprise, wouldn't it?
Yeah, he's got to play at some point.
Right, Tom, I think we're speculating over which squad players we're going for. I think our last time out before the Arsenal game, we looked at the 5 fixtures and said, how many points do you want from this? And we thought, maybe 10 would keep us in the title race. We've only had 6 points from that, but we're still in it. We're 4 points off the top, Tom. And this is and I think the victory last night was Saints playing out their skins, but some of the other games, you could say that Saints were playing within themselves and didn't get the results. So it's still happening, Tom.
Leicester are really good. Don't get me wrong, but we can beat Leicester. And they can easily beat us. I think anything but a loss is a great result against Leicester, and then we move into a run of games which not easy. There's games that Saints will fancy there. It's really exciting. I don't know what to say, but it's just really exciting.
Let's just win the rest of our games this season. Sort that out, Ralph.
If he does that, we'll win the league. I'm saying that's my prediction, John.
Right. Listeners, thank you for sticking us with this long if you're still listening at this point. Maybe you're out on your daily exercise. Let us know. saintsfcpodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Twitter @saintsfcpodcast. Tom, it's been a pleasure to chat to you and see your face through the screen of my laptop. I've not gone back to work yet. That's tomorrow. So by the end of the week, I'll be fed up of looking at my laptop again. So it's nice that you got in there early, Tom.
Yeah, I'm premier content right now, John.
Exactly.
A couple of days, sick of this.
Right. Good night, everyone. And hope you enjoy listening to this episode. And let's see. Hopefully we can beat Shrewsbury and then kick on in the Premier League again. Thank you very much, everyone. And goodbye.